Hey, friends. All right, so today I'm giving myself full permission to let my spiritual nerd out. We're going to deep dive into where spirituality and science meet, where your nervous system and consciousness merge to essentially help us become um, one of the most powerful force in our life, or the most powerful force in our life and in our business. I'm plugging in my computer so that it doesn't die on us midlife. So here's the thing: wealth, money, is really a symbol. It's a representation, an energy, a consciousness. And because of that, our own level of nervous system regulation and expansion, our own energy, and our own level of consciousness directly affects how much we have access to that wealth, to that money, how much we allow ourselves to bring in. And it directly affects our capacity to not only receive it, but hold on to it. Morning, Lori. So, today, what I'm going to talk about is there's four levels of nervous system expansion, all the way from full on contraction to full on expansion. And these four levels of nervous system expansion are aligned with the four level of consciousness that are taught by two people specifically. Peter Sage talks about these four levels of consciousness, and Zig Ziglar, who is a master salesperson, has also talked about these four levels of consciousness. So we're going to dive deeply into that today. And we're going to explore these four levels. I'm going to kind of tell you what each level is, what's the problem, what's the solution, how that level affects your wealth, like what's happening with your money when you're at that level. And then I'm going to give you a sense of what are some of the shift, what are some of the things we're releasing and practicing to essentially get us from one level to the next. And what's gonna happen here is my intention for you guys is to kind of be able to see which levels you're kind of playing in and how that's showing up in your business and in your wealth, and have like a strategic pathway to start practicing and bringing yourself into those more expanded receiving state, so that you can essentially elevate yourself and your results in life, in love, in business, and in wealth. Before I go into this, though, I want to introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, hi, I'm Ilsa. As I stated earlier, I'm a total spiritual nerd. I'm also a psychotherapist, an expansion expert, and a strategist. For almost 20 years at this point, I've been teaching clients how to rewire their nervous system, their lives, their relationships, their bodies, their businesses for more. More ease, more joy, more wealth, more flow. If you want more peaceful and expansive growth and more easeful receiving in your own life, in your own business, then you're in the right place. Welcome. And if you want to experience the power of this work for yourself, I always start working with clients by offering a 90-minute one-on-one intensive that I called Wired for Wealth. And I offer those at 55% off to people who are new to me. It's a way to really start getting a sense of the work, start rewiring your nervous system. In this process, we'll discover where your blocks are in the nervous system, and I'll show you exactly how to come out of contraction into expansion. If you want to book that for yourself with the discount, just click the link in the description, wherever the description of this video is. All right, let's get started. So, right at the beginning of this training, I mentioned how our own level of nervous system expansion and our own level of consciousness directly affects and defines how much wealth we have access to. It defines how much money we allow ourselves to receive and to hold. You see, we are both the recipient and the receptacle of the results we bring in. And we can only receive and hold as big as we are. So, like, I don't know, for example, like if you imagine a football field. Let's imagine a football field for a minute. And let's imagine that throughout this football field, there's gold coins everywhere in the football field. Now, if you are the size of an ant, it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of energy for you to move through that entire football field and collect all these gold coins. Now, let's make you a little bigger. Let's say that you are the size of, I don't know, a cat. Same thing. Now, it still takes you quite a bit of time and effort to go through this entire football field and collect all these gold coins. It's faster than being an ant, potentially, but it's still a lot of work and a lot of effort. Now, if you're the size of a football player, suddenly it's like the field is getting smaller and it takes a lot less effort and a lot less time to collect all these coins. Now, let's imagine you're the size of a huge plane. I did a big skip here. I could have gone elephant in between, but you got the drift. Like now let's imagine you're the size of a plane. How long? How much effort does it take you to go from one edge? Like you're so wide, you're so long that literally it takes you almost no effort and no time to get from one end of the football field to the other. This is what we're talking about here. When you expand yourself, you end up having a lot more capacity to reach your goals and to like gather the results that are on their way to you. And it doesn't take nearly as much time and it doesn't take nearly as much effort. So that's what we're diving into. As I'm going to talk to you about those 4 stages of ascending nervous system expansion and the 4 levels of consciousness by Peter Sage, essentially you want to think that at each of these levels, you are literally like at level 1, you're the size of an ant. At level 2, you're the size of, a cat or a football player. At level 3, you're finally, maybe the size of an elephant or a whale. And then at level 4, you are the field. You're not even a plane anymore. At that highest level, at level 4, you literally are the field. You have access to everything. And that's kind of like the magical state that, most of us are always aiming for, but very, very few of us are living at. So here's the thing you want to understand about these 4 stages is you can rotate through these stages of consciousness, through these levels of nervous system contraction and expansion in every moment. Like one moment you can be at level 3 and then something happens and the next moment you're at level 1. And you can also rotate based on different areas of your life. So it's very possible to be in a real place of expansion, for example, in your health and your vitality and your energy, but be in a place of contraction in your relationship, for example, or in your business. So these stages, they're not one and done. You don't get someplace and you stay here. They're in constant flux and flow. And there's something that we're always moving through and working with every moment. The more expanded your nervous system is, the higher your level of consciousness, the easier life gets, and the more effortless making and receiving money becomes because everything is flowing. So let's start at level 1. And here's what I'm going to invite you to do. I'm going to invite you to essentially start to sense where in my life am I at this level? Because even me, who's been doing this work for a long time, I have my moments, I have my areas where I am at level 1. I am in that full contraction of the nervous system. Welcome to being human. The importance is not to not be at these levels. The importance is to know when you're in them and where you're in them. And that awareness allows you to make a decision and to start having access to doing something different, to start opening yourself up and elevating yourself. So pay attention to where you are in this place in your life, and under what circumstances you are in this place. And then pay attention to what are some of the things you need to do to elevate. And just maybe write those down so that when you find yourself stuck, you know exactly kind of like what to focus on. All right. So the first level of consciousness is called to me consciousness. And again, this is based on Peter Sage and Zig Ziglar's models. From a nervous system perspective, the to me consciousness, our nervous system is in full contraction. We're afraid, we're stuck. It's the lowest level. You want to think of it like the basement in your house. There's very few windows or no windows. There's little perspective. It's kind of cold and dark and dank down there. And there's few options for freedom. At this level, when your nervous system is in full contraction or you're in that to me consciousness, it feels like things are happening to you and that you feel stuck, you feel unsafe, you feel powerless to change things. At this level, we experience a lot of limitations, a lot of struggle, a sense of victimization, of feeling unsupported by life, feeling misunderstood by people, feeling unappreciated. At this level too, there's almost a sense that this isn't our life. Like our life belongs to us. We know at some intuitive sense that we're not living the life we were born to live. That either we're not showing up as authentically as we should or as is available to us. We feel like we don't have agency in our life, and we don't see a whole lot of possibilities, options, or opportunities at this level. We just feel really stuck, really contracted, and we don't know how to move forward. And again, there's that poor me victim sense in this place. It feels like the world is turning its back on us in some way, shape, or form. At this level, when it comes to money, when our nervous system is in full contraction and we're operating from that to me consciousness, we are in what I call financial survival mode. There's a fight, flight, freeze response to money. We're either not making any money or we're barely making ends meet. It feels like our relationship to money is disappointing, it's hard, it's scary. There's a real sense that there's not enough money to go around, and bringing it in, holding on to it feels like a struggle. Even when you actually bring in money at this stage, it feels like it slips right out of your fingers, like you can't even tell where it went, and you got nothing to show for it. So at this level, there's a lot of worrying about money. There's some degree of hustling, but actually at this level, you almost feel frozen. You don't quite know what to do. You feel helpless to change your circumstance. And because you're in such a level of contraction in your nervous system, like worry, fear will create this real lack of safety, which totally contracts us. When you're in that level of contraction, then it's hard to get creative. It's hard to get in flow. It's hard to start trusting that things are going to change, that things are moving. And that level of contraction block the answers we need to move forward, and they block opportunities. They literally block clients, money, opportunities and possibilities from flowing in. The other thing, and I'm not going to go into this at all today, but if you've watched me before, you know I like to say that people don't buy what you sell, they buy expansion. When you are at that level, it's very hard for someone to want to buy from you or to want to work with you or to want to be around you, because it doesn't feel good to be around you. It doesn't feel good to be with you. And it also doesn't feel good for other people to be around you. And so you could have a great message, but if you are literally in that fight, flight, frozen, contracted, anxious state, other people's nervous system can start to feel that anxiety, to feel that contraction, and they get contracted around you, which totally limits their ability to feel comfortable investing in your offer or being around you. So how do we shift out of that first level? By the way, here's the thing, there's no blame or shame here. I know that you are in this place sometimes. How do I know? Because I've never met a person, including people I've worked with who make 7 figures, who is not in that place sometimes. I'm in that place sometimes. This is part of being human. The importance, again, is to just recognize, catch ourselves, become aware of where we're at so that we have a choice point. So how do we shift out of that full contraction, of that poor me level 1 consciousness? At this level, our job, our big job, is to start bringing our nervous system into a sense of safety. A lot of this stage is around helplessness, powerlessness, and feeling unsafe and insecure in our life. Like feelings like we don't belong here and we don't know how to get ourselves out. The first step to move out of that is to start to practice safety and know that you've got your own back. Know that you belong here. Start claiming, I've got my own back and I belong here. How do I know I belong here? Because I'm frickin' here. And who am I to argue with reality? So that first level is we're reclaiming safety, safety that we've got ourselves, safety that it's okay to be here, safety that we're safe and secure in being here. So we're releasing essentially our resistance to where we're at. So first we reclaim safety. Safety is the foundation of any level of expansion. Then we release internal shame and external blame. So you want to look at all the places where you're shaming yourself, you're beating up on yourself, essentially all the places where you don't have your own back. And then you also want to start to shave off and release external blame. All the places where you are making somebody else the culprit of where you're at, which essentially actually reinforces your sense of powerlessness and helplessness. You essentially want to start claiming that your life is your own. That claiming that my life is my own. I don't need to shame myself and it's nobody's fault. My life belongs to me. When you start to claim that, you actually start to grow in your sense of agency and empowerment. Because agency and empowerment comes from taking responsibility for our own life, our own state of being, for where we are at. And what's interesting with this is the moment you release shame and you release blame and you start taking responsibility and ownership for your life, even if nothing changes, something inside you starts to change. Something inside you starts to let go of that sense of victimization, of helplessness, of powerlessness, and starts to claim a sense of innate power to be at cause in your own life. So once we have reclaimed safety and belonging, those are the steps. Step 1, reclaim safety and belonging. Learn to feel safe in your body, and that's a lot of the work that I do. Learn to feel like you belong here and this is your life. Step 2 is you start looking at all the places you're shaming yourself or blaming others, and you start to release that and really have your own back and claim your own life, which will really help you step into that sense of agency, that sense of power. And then you move into step 3. And step 3 is releasing resistance. Essentially, you have to stop being at war with your current experience to start creating a different experience. I like to say that resistance is the antithesis to receiving. Resistance automatically reinforces that something bad is happening, that we are small, that we are powerless, that we are unsafe, that we don't have the ability to change our circumstance. And a lot of energy goes into being in resistance. So when we can release resistance, we can stop being at war with where we're at. We start to automatically open to what could be. And that level of just starting to open, starting to use the energy we're using to resist to be like, I wonder what else is possible. That level allows us to essentially start to come out of contraction. And it's massive. It's a massive shift because you can't create what is possible by being at war with what is. So we're practicing at level 1 to come out of level 1, to come out of that poor me, to me consciousness, to come out of contraction. We're practicing saying yes to ourselves. We're practicing saying yes to life exactly as it is, even though it doesn't feel good. And we're shifting our internal no, our internal sense of being unsafe, at the mercy of life, of being a victim, into a sense of openness, a small yes, a willingness to start being here and considering what else could be possible. And we essentially start to provide ourselves with the support we need, the belonging we need, the validation we need, the appreciation we need, the safety we need that we've been seeking out there. And the moment we do that, the moment we are providing for ourselves that validation, that support, that appreciation, that sense of safety, and we're starting to open into what is possible and shifting our mind away from where we're at and being in resistance to what is possible and opening, then we move on to level 2. Level 2 of the 4 levels of consciousness is called by me consciousness. And here our nervous system is shifting out of total contraction to a sense of regulation. It's not expansion yet, but we're starting to feel okay being us and being here. We're starting to feel safe. At this level, it becomes possible and safe to really want. Because you're no longer fighting where you're at and you're not focusing on what's not working, you actually have energy. You have space to start focusing on, what is it I really want here? What do I desire? And it feels actually safe to dream. It feels safe to consider more and to start thinking about creating more. At this level, we're starting to really see and experience that the power is in us and we're not at the mercy of fate, but we are the driver of our fate. And we start to really reclaim that sense of control and ownership in our life, in our business. Our nervous system, that sense of control and ownership actually feels safe, which allows our nervous system to start to open, to start getting regulated. And that regulation in the nervous system allows us to feel grounded, feel settled, feel centered. We're shifting out of anxiety into agency. And here we're also starting to really take responsibility for the results that we're creating in our life and in our business. So the perspective at this level of consciousness is, it's on me. If I don't make it happen, nothing's going to change. We're done being a victim. We're done indulging in our own negativity. And we're ready to roll up our sleeves and to be and do and have something different. We're snapping out of that contraction. We're coming into regulation and we're ready to take control of our lives. So at this level, especially in business, there's a lot of hustling. There's a lot of efforting. There's a lot of pushing and control and forcing and using our own internal energy, our own power to make things happen. A lot of entrepreneurs can get stuck at this level. Now, another thing that's happening in terms of perspective here is this level of consciousness and regulation. We're anchored in logic. We're a little stuck in linear thinking. 1 + 1 = 2. If I do this, this will happen. The more I show up, the harder I work, the bigger my results will be. Like, it kind of makes sense. And we're used to doing consecutive steps and to essentially expect that what we get is what we put out. Here we're moving, like in level 1, we're in full victim. In this, the pendulum is totally swinging in the opposite direction, and we're literally deciding that we're never going to be helpless again. We're deciding that we're taking it upon ourselves, that we're going to make this shit happen, that we're going to do what we need to do to create the results we want. So, as I stated, there's something really powerful about this, because this reclaiming of agency, this reclaiming of your own power, this reclaiming of ownership and control in your life or in your business feels really good. And it allows your nervous system to come out of that contraction, to actually feel like you do belong here and you're going to make your destiny, and it's safe to be here because now you're really relying on yourself. You're no longer at the mercy of life. So it feels good, and that's great. The issue at this level is that it can be very exhausting long term. When it comes to money, at this level of consciousness, you're making money. You're starting to make money. You're earning it. Maybe it's not always like, there's ups and downs, but if you put a bunch of energy into it, usually you get some kind of result, and you're starting to see that you have the power to create the money you want. So you're making money, but you're also worried that you're going to lose it. You're afraid of not having enough. You're afraid of those dips. You're afraid of running out. You're afraid of not being able to maintain what you have and what you're creating, partially because you see how much effort it is taking. I'm looking at the comments. Yes. So this, I'm going to make this shit happen. I'm going to create the results I want, is extremely empowering, and it's regulating to the nervous system, but it's exhausting. So here, because you're afraid of not having enough, because you're afraid of money running out, because you're afraid that you're not going to be able to consistently maintain this level of doing, essentially, there's a form of self-sabotage and of self-sacrifice, and the flow can be broken. Essentially, you're feeling stuck in hustle. And something in you, in your own nervous system, knows that hustle is not sustainable. And so you can end up sabotaging that level because it's too exhausting. There's here, in terms of your relationship to money at this level, you still feel like your access to money is limited. And you have to be careful, and you've got to work hard for every bit of it. Your energy around money is safer than before because you've seen results, but it's still pretty tight and pretty contracted and controlled, rather than being in a place of expansiveness. So there's no flow to money. There's ups and downs at this level. You feel like what your relationship to money is strangled and controlled. You're afraid of spending it, and essentially you're creating an energetic dam around money because you see it as a limited resource. You see money as scarce, as in short supply, and rather than realizing that money is actually an energy. Money is totally renewable and inexhaustible. It's a flow. And so that's the shift that we're going to start making from this level to the next level. So the issue with this level of consciousness is everything, including bringing in money, rests on our own shoulders. Yes, we're out of contraction. We're out of victimization. We feel more in control. We feel more in power. Our nervous system is starting to regulate itself. But we're still anchored in scarcity. We're still anchored in our output, like what we get, is directly related to how much effort we put in. And if we are not careful with that, it will lead to coming right back to level 1, which is contracted, because we'll get exhausted. We'll feel depleted. We'll feel drained. We'll feel under pressure. And that will start to, again, feel unsafe. And the moment you feel unsafe, your nervous system contracts. The moment you feel put upon and you feel like you're helpless and you're a victim of your circumstance, you're right back to your nervous system contracting. So what we're doing here is we're starting to move and realize that we need to figure out a way to create results that doesn't only rely on force, but relies on flow. And we need to start feeling supported by life, activating a sort of inner magic rather than essentially trying to make everything happen through manipulation. So at this level, we're still very much in touch with our own limitation, our limitation of time, our limitation of energy, the limits of our nervous system capacity for more, the limit that we have in terms of what we know what to do, what to do in our business or in our lives, like the strategies we're using, and our limits in terms of how much we're able to receive and hold. And so here we know and we start realizing that as long as we are anchored in limitation, we're going to limit our results, because our results are an extension of us, and our receive ability ends up being as limited as we are. We're back to this metaphor of the bigger you are, the more access you have to everything that's on its way to you. So how do we move beyond regulation and beyond this by me consciousness to that next level? So this level is empowering. There's a sense of safety, there's a sense of capability, of ownership, but it's exhausting, as we've talked about, and it's limited in terms of the amount you're able to create and bring in long term. So here we need to start paying attention at this level to what is it in your own life and in your business that feels in flow, that feels aligned, that feels easeful, like you don't have to put a whole lot of effort and force to make it happen. You start to pay attention and get curious on what might it look like to stop creating results from force and to shift to creating results from flow and inflow. So one of the things we are releasing here is that push. We're releasing the push, we're releasing control, and we're coming into a place of starting to look at ease, flow, trust, and what is it to, like, the difference between making something happen to receiving it. You can even see my body, like one is like leaned in and then the other is leaned back. Something that's happening here too is when you're shifting from that level 2 to that level 3, which we're going to go into, it's almost like you're starting to bring some feminine energy, like that level 2 of consciousness is very masculine. It's very effort, it's very driven by doing. And then the shift is you're starting to bring in some feminine energy in terms of what does it look like to receive instead of making it happen? Where am I lean back in my life? Can I practice leaning back? Where am I in flow? Where am I already relaxed? What feels easeful? What feels fun? And you're shifting away from that push and that pressure and having an inquiry into how do I come to this, my business, my relationship, my life, from a place of peace and pleasure. So we're shifting from push and pressure to peace and pleasure. So this level, as you're releasing control, you're releasing that forcefulness, that efforting, you're starting to simply consider a different way. And what that different way might feel like in your body, a more easeful, a more nourishing way, a place that doesn't leave you out of the equation, a place that as you're doing, you're literally filling yourself up at the same time. Because if not, if you're only relying on your own effort, your own energy, your own doing, you become the bottleneck to your results. So when you want to shift from level 2 to a higher level, you're going to start paying attention to your state of being and the effect that your state of being has on your results. Do you feel relaxed? Do you feel in flow? Are you having fun? And how do you bring more of that in what you are doing? How do you essentially not do more, but bring more ease, more flow, more fun to what it is that you are doing? There's a sense here too, as you start to shift out of this level, that if something feels really hard and requires a lot of effort, it might not be your way. It might not be aligned. So again, we're starting to shift our perspective, our level of thinking. I'm thinking of Einstein, who said that famous statement, you can't solve a problem from the same level of thinking that created it. This, when you're shifting from level 2 to level 3, is a shift of paradigm. It's a shift of thinking. You realize that you're the bottleneck, that if you keep doing and thinking the way you have, you're creating a ceiling for yourself, and you're starting to consider that there could be a better way, a different way. And you're practicing releasing control, releasing pushing, and coming back into flow, into fun, into peace, into freedom. And you begin to trust that something bigger and more powerful than you exist, and that you get to create from that place that is bigger. And it doesn't all have to rely on elbow grease, work, effort. So here you're shifting your perspective from it's all on me to a much wider perspective of trust and knowing that we are supported and we're guided, and there is always more than enough. So you're shifting from scarcity, from control, to trust and to abundance. And when you do that, you're literally stepping in that third level. So level 3 is called through me consciousness. And here your nervous system is going from regulation, feeling centered, feeling okay, to rest, relaxation, and becoming receptive. Yeah, no more elbow grease. Yes, moving from trust, moving from doing to starting to move into doing from being. So your nervous system starts to shift from just feeling regulated and centered to being able to rest, being able to relax and open and become receptive. This is the beginning of expansion in some ways. So at that third level, our consciousness is expanding. We're stepping into trust. We're moving in flow. And we start to lean more towards receiving rather than having to make it happen. And we're believing not only in our own power, but in the fact that we are plugged in to something that's bigger than ourselves. And we're essentially starting to let go and move beyond the power of hard work and essentially start to lean in what I call unseen resources that are available. So at this level, things start to be effortless, they start to flow, they start to be easeful. We feel deeply supported by life, feel like we have a communication, a connection, a relationship with life. We're not worried nearly as much about the ups and downs of life and of money because we know that there's always more and always better. And that life's got our back, that we have our own back, that we're taken care of, essentially. So I'm kind of coming back full circle to that sense of safety. If you listen to how I'm describing that, there is a deep sense of belonging, of safety, and of security that actually has nothing to do with the circumstances of your life. It literally comes from within. It comes from being plugged in. It comes from knowing your own bigness and being plugged in into something that feels really supportive, really nourishing, and bigger than you. So at this level, people get interested into the law of attraction. They start to learn about the magic of their nervous system and expanding the nervous system. They're really practicing being in alignment and moving from an inflow. And here, what's happening is we're still doing, we're in activity, but we're really starting to believe and step into the value, the importance of being. And we're starting to sense the infinite possibilities that are available to us from this place of being. So we're shifting our focus away from just doing and working the strategies to really paying attention to who are we being as we are doing, the quality of our own inner state and the quality of our experience. In some ways, level 2 is about quantity. How much can we create? How much can we show up? Level 3, as we're bringing in the feminine, is about quality. Hey, Chloe. So at this level, our nervous system isn't just regulated, it's open. Because it's starting to open, we start to be able to receive more. We're relaxed. We're going with the flow. It just feels good to be in our own body, and it starts to feel really good to be in our own life. Because we're open, we have more access to our intuition, to our creativity, to the sense of ease, and we're starting to feel free in our own life, regardless of what's actually happening in our own life. Now, what's happening to our money at this level? So at this level, we're starting to feel comfortable with money. We starting to see and believe in the infinite renewable aspect of money. We see it as a resource that is always flowing, that even if some leaves, more is coming in. So we have, at this level, we have enough to pay our bills, and we're starting to save. We're starting to have leftover. Our nervous system is really starting to relax around money, both our ability to create it, to receive it, and to hold on to it. We're not in fight and flight. We're not hustling. We're not pushing. We're starting to feel trust and flow around bringing in money and even spending it. And we know that this is part of the flow. We don't need to worry about spending it because more's coming. We're also starting to really feel trust and confidence in our ability to draw money to us when we need it, knowing that we don't have to hustle or sacrifice, that the money's going to appear, that the client's going to show up, that we are supported, that money supports us, our business supports us, life supports us. There's a lot less fear. Your relationship to money feels nourishing at this level. You feel comfortable with where you're at. This stage can feel really easeful and good, and for a lot of people, this is where we end. This is where we stop the journey, because there doesn't feel like a real need internally to get to more, but it's actually not the end of the journey. And it's a really easy level to get stuck at because we are starting to experience that flow, that magic, that miracle of effortless results. And we feel supported, so we don't need to move beyond that. But here's the issue with this level, if there is one. Even though we're believing in something bigger than ourselves and we're believing in the flow, we're still doing the energetic work. There's still a sense that our level of flow externally is related to our level of flow internally. And so we're working hard at being aware of our thoughts, at being aware of our feelings, at being aware of our state of belief, at continuously expanding and up leveling those. We're working hard at staying in regulation, in relaxation, in expansion in our nervous system. In some ways, it's still up to us. There's still the sense that if I don't get my mind straight, if I don't get my mindset straight, if I don't get my nervous system in the right place, everything's going to get fucked up. Everything's going to get blocked. I'm going to start sabotaging. And so before there was an external pressure. I've got to do and I've got to make things happen. Here, there's a little bit of an internal pressure to be this big version of us, to be this higher version of us, which is fine, but there's still an efforting in there. So at this level, if you don't work on you, you block the flow. So how do we start to shift out of that? I hope everybody's okay. Fire truck. So how do we start to shift out of that? How do we start to move beyond that nervous system relaxation and receptivity, that openness, and that through me consciousness to that next level? The massive shift of perspective that happens when we move beyond this level is a shift of identity, really. It's a shift from being a human being to being the entirety of existence. So it's a shift from a closed identity, I am myself, to a union identity. At this level, we're surrendering separation and we're coming into oneness. That's the shift from level 3 to level 4. You surrender essentially separation, personal identity, and you're coming into a place of oneness. You're coming into a place of oneness with money, oneness with the clients you're meant to serve, oneness with the soul of your business. There's not you here and the world and the flow out there. There is just flow, and you are part of that flow. Our purpose literally is life's purpose. So the work at this level is moving so deeply into relaxation, into openness, into receptivity, into rest, that you start to dissolve that sense of separation and you become that thing that is bigger. This is the peace that pathis understanding that they talk about in the Bible. It is where all the mystics, what the mystics are talking about when we do that high spiritual work. It's a level of expansion that literally could never be disturbed by any circumstance. For those of you who've read The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle, when he talks about being on a park bench, that's probably what he's talking about, and just being totally okay with where he was at. In level 1, I talked about how the big work of level 1 is releasing resistance, to not be at war with where we're at. At this level, you don't even know what resistance is. Like, there's not a you swimming in the river. You are the river. Like at level 3, you're still you and you're floating in the river. You're going with the flow of the river. At level 4, You allow yourself to be like an ice cube that starts to melt, and you are simply water. You are the river. Now, again, this is very mystical. Most of us never get there. Some of us might have glimpses of that where we're so in flow with life that we forget who we are and we're just in it. We have moments of that, but most of us can't actually be there and sustain it. And I don't know that we need to. We just need to know that this is there, that this is the full level of expansion of your nervous system. So at this level, what we're moving to, we're moving away from having to think expansive thoughts and feel expansing feelings to being expansion itself. And we're fully anchored in trust. Yeah, talking about rivers. It's a really good metaphor, actually. So here's the thing. Level 4, which is called as me consciousness, and here the nervous system is moving from relaxed, at rest, receptive to full expansion. This level is not something we make happen. It's something that happens to us. Like as we start to release resistance more and more, as we start to come into trust and into feeling supported. At first, we feel supported by life. And then it's like something works on us, and that distinction between me and life start to dissolve. And suddenly there's just life holding itself. But it's not something we can really make happen. It's something that essentially, if I had to say the only thing we're doing is we're relaxing more and more. We're trusting, we're leaning back more and more. And at some point, in that trusting, in that leaning back, in that opening of ourselves, something in us starts to shift and starts to dissolve. And at some point, we are the flow, and we don't even know how we got there. And including, by the way, when you are fully anchored in that level 4. Like I've had glimpses of that where I've spent a few days or even a couple weeks in that. Like contractions still happen. You're still a human being. Somebody says something mean to you, your body responds. Like there's a crisis, your body responds. And yet, nothing disturbs you. The contraction does not disturb the expansion. The contraction does not disturb that sense of freedom, that sense of peace, that sense of belonging, of support, of trust. When that's happening, you're fully in level 4. For me, level 4 is essentially magic. It's being in the infinite possibilities that exist. It's pure being. Zero separation. There's no within and without. It's just what is. And so success really at this level is just an extension of wholeness. No matter what, you feel joyful, you feel satisfied, you feel whole, you feel full of yourself, but of yourself as life. At this stage, even when you have like when you see yourself as a human being, you actually see your perfection. You see how you're exactly the way you're supposed to be. A jewel, a unique ripple, a unique snowflake of life. And you have no desire to be anything other than who and what you are. You feel infinitely supported, infinitely loved, and you have no need for validation outside of yourself. So it's not even at this level, it's not even that we are experiencing flow, freedom, and peace and expansion. We are flow, we are freedom, we are peace. Our identity is expansion. And our actions, the doing, really naturally emerges out of that shift. It naturally emerges out of that level of expansion, that level of flow, that level of freedom. And so our results become kind of magical because, as we talked about, our results are an extension of our level of being, of our level of consciousness. So when you are that open, that expanded, that in flow, then everything starts to flow to you. And that's when you start hearing about like people having like quantum leaps and they don't even know how they created the results they created. When it comes to money at this level, it really isn't even about creating the tangible aspect of money. It's about being rich. And when I say being, I mean being with big letters, like being rich, being abundant, being abundance. At this level, we totally recognize that money is an energy, it's a state of being that we embody and know ourselves as. We also know at this level that all there is flow. All there is limitless supply, limitless abundance. And so there's a real ease with spending and receiving, with asking and receiving. Like everything's in flow because we are flow. So here, that's where you have exponential growth. You're not stuck in a linear fashion anymore. You can have crazy synchronicities that defy logic. But essentially, there's a complete and continuous flow of asking, giving, receiving, expanding. It's all moving and it's all easeful. And we're trusting in the abundance of the universe, knowing that we are the universe. So that's level 4. And again, it's very spiritual, very mystical, but it can show up in business and it can have some very tangible results in business. So how do we work with these 4 levels? The trick is always to ask yourself, what level am I at right now? Like, am I in full victimization, powerless, contracted? Am I hustling and starting to claim that my life belongs to me and I get to make things happen, but I'm putting on a lot of effort? Am I starting to come into trust and into flow and doing a lot of work internally so that I'm in being and not just doing, and I'm paying attention to the being behind the doing and the quality of my experience? Or am I in oneness? Am I in the knowing that I am money, I am my client, there's no separation? So you start to figure out, where am I at? And asking like, how do I come to that next level? Obviously, if you're in level 3 or 4, you're probably in level 4. There's no, as far as I know, there's no other level. At least they don't talk about a level past that. But even if you're in 3 and you are in flow, you are in trust, but you're working hard to stay there internally, there's another piece. There's another piece where even contraction is welcome. Even contraction doesn't disturb your peace and your freedom and your level of expansion. So even if you're in level 3, where you are really meeting and being in a place of ease and alignment and flow, how do you even expand beyond that to being life itself rather than just being you supported by life? There's no shame ever in being where we're at. And we want to be careful about that inner guilt or inner shaming or inner blaming that we can create. The power is always in recognizing and making decision and choices towards more expansion. Like, what's one small thing I could do here to be in more expansion, in more rest, in more trust? And meeting ourselves where we're at from a real place of loving presence, of loving support towards ourselves, so that we don't re-traumatize ourselves, so that we don't create more contraction and more wounding. Because remember, one of the things I said at the beginning is that safety is at the root of all and every level of expansion. So whenever you feel contraction, there's a lack of safety. How do you hold yourself so that you can feel safe with yourself? That's always that first level. I find that a lot of us who are highly conscious, we kind of know that there's more open states of being available for us. We've experienced them. we can be really hard on ourselves. We can start to shame ourselves, to beat up ourselves, to feel like we shouldn't be stuck there, we shouldn't experience contraction anymore. Um, we feel like we should be further than where we're at. And the only thing that's doing is actually it's keeping us stuck. It's perpetuating and intensifying constriction. We're literally tightening the noose around our own neck rather than helping ourselves out. Yeah, focusing on service is a powerful way of essentially starting to dissolve that sense of separation. When you are in service, you're literally in the emotion of love. And the emotion of love for me is a quality of oneness. It's a quality of unity. So absolutely. Like being in service, wanting to serve, wanting to help, being in love with our clients, being in love with what's possible for them, for the results that are possible for them is a powerful way to come out of contraction and start coming into expansion. Here's the one thing, the one thing I will share with you before I close this live, this training. Keep in mind that contraction is not the absence of expansion. It is the pathway to expansion. The contraction is not the enemy. It's not in the way of expansion. It is the way to expansion. The contraction literally tells you, it's a reminder, it's a request for expansion. It tells you where you're stuck. It tells you which part of you feels unsafe. It shows you where you need to hold yourself better, with more love, with more presence, with more kindness. Contraction is always a request for expansion. Like, think of something inside you waving the white flag. I need help. I'm stuck. I feel afraid. I feel unworthy. Help me. Contraction is your little self, your wounded self, asking for help from your sovereign self, from your expanded self. Just like pain in your body, physical pain, is a request for relief. Like an itch is a request for scratching, or hunger pangs is a request, a reminder to eat so that you can be satiated. Contraction shows you where the knots are within you, and it also shows you the path forward to more relaxation, more openness, more expansion. What we all need, what you need, is simply a reliable system to meet yourself, a process to meet yourself that is anchored in love, that is anchored in compassion, that is anchored in like paradigm shifts, so that you can, when you find yourself in contraction, you know exactly what to do to effortlessly bring yourself back into a place of safety, into a place of regulation, into a place of relaxation, into a place of trust. And you can do that, you know, essentially and reach higher and higher level of expansion of consciousness, so that creating, receiving, having becomes easeful and playful. You just need a process that works for you. For me, and for a lot of my clients, nervous system expansion work is that work. It is the work that makes everything you're doing finally work. It is about becoming who you are at core, beyond the woundings, beyond the blocks. It's about becoming who you were born to become, you were destined to become. Nervous system expansion work is the path to heal your past. Like, release all the contraction, release all the woundings of the past. And it is the gateway to your potential and to the future that is possible for you. It allows us to become that bigger recipient, that bigger receptacle, so that we can start to receive and hold the results we want. It allows you to expand so that you are at some point the size of that football field, and you can literally collect all these golden coins in one easeful, playful sweep. So that's what I have for you if you are ready to shift out of contraction and you're curious about diving into a journey of quantum expansion in partnership with your nervous system. Then I want to invite you to have a session together and make some magic happen. For people who are new to me, I offer a 90-minute one-on-one intensive at 55% off. I call it Wired for Wealth, and it's around $149. In this intensive, we're going to explore and figure out what are your unique wounds and blocks that are holding you back. And then I'm going to actually walk you through and teach you my proprietary hatching process so that you know exactly how to bring yourself out of contraction back into expansion. That process that I talk about that we all need so we know how to hold ourselves and how to bring ourselves out of that contracted state into the expanded receiving state, that's what I'm going to teach you in that intensive so that you can essentially start really being the most powerful force in your life and in your relationship. So together we're going to unlock the power of your nervous system and train your brain and bring about a whole new experience of creating, receiving, and having more in your life and in your business in a way that's going to really nourish and delight you. Not just your bank account, all of you. And then at the end of that, if you want to continue working with me and I feel like it is the right fit, then I will give you a couple different options to fit your goals and your budget. So how do you book this Wired for Wealth intensive at 55% off? Click the link that's in the description of this video, and it will bring you to a page that describes exactly what we'll do, and then you can click to purchase, and then you'll get to book. And usually you'll find space on my schedule within a week to 10 days of when you purchase. Sometimes as quickly as 2 days from that time, depending if it's a weekend or anything like that. So that's what I have for you. Always remember that you have everything you need. You are the most powerful force in your life, in your business, and your nervous system holds the key to your healing and your becoming. And I would love to be your guide on this journey of expansion. All right, that is it for me. Have a wonderful rest of your week. We have gone over an hour. That is an insane long time, even for me. I'm sending you love. Mwah.